Hello and welcome to the first installment of the Puppets Epic Comic Review. I'm Jack the Wolf, and joining me is the Butler.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, and that's right. For the first Puppets Epic Comic Review, and in celebration of Monsters at Work, and as you know, we originally intended this for it to come out the day when Monsters, Inc. premiered, but it got delayed. But, still, while Monsters at Work is, out and, in celebration of it, we are going to be looking at the Kids Boom comic book of Monsters, Inc., the Monsters, Inc. comic book. But before we do so, let's talk about Monsters at Work. Well, I gotta say, I'm really quite impressed with Monsters at Work. It really promised me something, and it didn't disappoint. What about you, Butler?
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love Monsters at Work. With the return of some familiar characters, and with the return of its voice actors, because they are the voices of those characters, without a doubt. And it's new characters from Tyler Tuskman, Fritz, Val Little, Duncan, Cutter, all the others. They're really good. And yeah, this is a really good Disney Plus show, and it's really awesome to finally see the franchise of Monsters at Work still going. You get the idea.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, Butler. Okay, so, you've got the comic, Butler?
Yep, got it right here.
Good. So let's get started, shall we?
All right, here we go.
So before we get started, we just want to get this out of the way. We won't be looking through all of the covers for all the Monsters, Inc. Laugh Factory issues. I mean, all we can say is they're really good, and hey, it's Boom Kids. They do a really good job with their comic book covers.
Yes, they do. They most certainly do. And especially with the Monsters, Inc. comics. But with all that out of the way, let's dive right into issue number 1 of the Monsters, Inc. Laugh Factory.
Our story begins with an opening dialogue. Why don't you take it from here, Butler?
Well, certainly. The future is bright at Monsters Incorporated. We're part of your life. We power your car. We warm your home. We light your city. With the window of innocent shrieking, human kids became harder to scare. Gathering scream became increasingly difficult. But Monsters Incorporated is up for any challenge. Through advanced research, we discovered that laughter is 10 times more powerful than scream. Now MI's top amusers are producing superior laugh and refining it to clean, dependable energy.
I'm Monsters Incorporated. Fungus, because he's got the glasses on, just like how he did in the film.
Oh, this is great.
So after that opening dialogue, we now come to our story, where it turns out it was a commercial that they were filming.
Oh yeah, play that sweet, sweet music. That is how it's done.
And of course, we have Celia just being all googly eyes over Mike. And also, one thing I'd like to say about Celia. Celia probably has to be one of my favorite characters, and she's a really good female character, and not to mention female monster. I love her attitude, and because, the relationship between her and Mike Wazowski, and even though, because in the movie, she really didn't understand what was going on until she saw Boo and how much Mike truly loved her, and with Celia helping Mike and Sully make their way out of there and, holding, and stopping and holding Randall, etc. So you get the idea. And it's great to see more of her in Monsters at Work.
I couldn't agree more, because she's such a really good character. One of my favorites, too. Right next to, say, Needleman and Smitty.
Well, anyways, now we cut to apparently an argument going on between George Sanderson and Mike Wazowski, I guess over some, joke props, as I recall, because that's one of the main centers of issue number 1.
Then there's a bit of a conversation between Mike and Sully seems not to be in a pretty good and cheerful and happy mood, I guess you could say. And then we cut to Mike and his beloved girlfriend, Celia.
For this, I'll be playing Celia.
And I'll be playing the part of Mike Wazowski.
Right. Okay.
Anyways, the dialogue between Mike and Celia. You understand, right, Schmootsy Poo?
I understand that you care more about Sully than you do about me, Mike Wazowski.
Come on, Schmootsy Poo. My best friend needs me.
Oh, I can't stay mad at you for being so sweet to Sully, googly woogly.
Thanks, Schmootsy Poo. I know just the thing to cheer up the big blue furball.
And so Mike Wazowski goes to pick up Boo. And who else? That could cheer Sully up. As they're making their way back into the monster world, Boo mistakens a wanted poster of Randall, thinking that Randall is actually right there in person.
And of course, wouldn't you expect it, Sully is happy to see Boo, but not for too long. Boy, that escalated quickly. Oh well.
But then suddenly, a locker apparently explodes, I guess, and revealing that some missing props that were mentioned earlier in this comic are in Mike's locker.
And as Mike is taking Boo back to her door, Boo starts getting really upset, and even Sully, I guess, starts getting pissed and tells Mike to take her back, and so on. Because he's aiming it at him, that, look what you started, etc.
And then he calls in Roz, telling her that something fishy is going on and that he found the props. And Roz is like, "No, don't worry, Mr. Sullivan, everything's taken care of." And then she disconnects from him, hangs up, I guess, with the earpiece that Sully has.
And Sully's like, hello? Because, he's unable to tell her, etc., whatever it is that he was going to tell her. So after taking Boo back to her room, Mike says to himself in his mind, "Forget about it, Mike. Someone set you up, but Sully would never." Boom! Out of nowhere, the CDA show up. Target acquired, as one of them says.
And then Roz says, "Wazowski, stay where you are."
So Wazowski is placed under arrest, believing that he stole the missing props, in which Sully was trying to tell Roz that, Sully should know that, Mike never did this, to put it at this. Sully never got the chance. Seriously, Roz should do better. So Sully is thanked by all the other monsters for tracking down the one who stole the missing props. My God, these monsters, did they totally just end their friendship and totally forget about Mike or something? If you get what I'm trying to say.
And of course, Celia sets Sully straight about Mike, saying that he would never steal, etc. And that's really showing from Celia how much that, she loves Mike and their true love, etc. A loyal girlfriend, you name it. And with Sully, he goes into security to make sure and see who really stole the missing props.
And when Sully and the monster checking the security cameras are having a conversation, out of nowhere, the monster checking the cameras gets swatted/slapped by none other than Randall Boggs himself.
Hey guys, this is Gorgon making a very small cameo to let you guys know that due to technical difficulties, we lost the rest of the footage of Jack and the Butler reviewing the rest of issue number 1. So, yeah, we really apologize for that. Hopefully something like this will not happen again. So now we're moving on to them, reviewing issue number 2. So again, sorry for that. Hopefully it won't happen again. All right, let's get back to the video.
So now we come to issue number 2 of Monsters, Inc. Laugh Factory, where in the opening, Mike is putting on a comedic act for this kid who is terrified, etc., and it doesn't turn out so well. He runs out of there, and the same thing kind of happens with, I guess, George and Bile, I guess you could say. Sheesh. These kids, I can't blame these kids, being terrified of monsters, even though, Monsters, Inc. no longer, scares kids and they make kids laugh. Yeah, that's true. And we cut to a moment with Mike and Celia. Mike about to kiss Celia, but then when he opens his eye,
Oh my gosh, it's Roz!
Ah ha 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 ha. Da 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 da. And with a bit of dialogue between Mike, Sully, and Celia talking about Mr. Waternoose as apparently as though he has escaped from prison.
And it triggers them that what if Boo has been taken, I guess, and they rush to her door, and she's okay. And with some really good dialogue here between Mike, Celia, and Sully, and Mike has an idea. Say, I have an idea. We could use Boo as bait. Have you lost your mind?
Mike Wazowski? Micah Wazowski, how could you even think such a thing?
Just hear me out. If someone's hacking our system and we make Boo's door the only one that's active, they'll walk right into our hands. And by the way, did you guys notice this fairy poster in Boo's room? Yeah, and here's another thing. In these Monsters, Inc. comics, there's a lot of Disney and Pixar stuff that's in this. Like, say, there's a Wall-E poster, a Lightning McQueen, something Lightning McQueen in one of the comics. And not to mention, in issue number 3, which we will get into after we go through issue number 2, a crossover between Monsters, Inc. and Toy Story. Again, we'll get into that after we look through and review issue number 2, etc. Yes, let us continue.
So, Celia is the one who looks after and takes care of Boo, while Mike and Sully do the rest by setting up the doors and setting up the traps for when Waternoose comes in.
And there's a funny moment where, Mike, he accidentally sets off one of the traps.
But then, out of nowhere, Mr. Waternoose shows up, bursting through the door.
Sullivan, Wazowski, as Mr. Waternoose says. Hey, get back here, as I'm pretty sure that's Mike saying it. Not so fast, Mr. Waternoose, as I'm pretty sure right there that's Sully saying it, because there's a shot where he grabs the door. Then Mike says, "You're not getting away that easy."
So Mike and Sully go through the door and they end up in this very, and I will say very and like almost twisted scare floor or something.
What is this place, as Mike says? It's creepy, and that's saying something coming from the guy who lives next door to the boogeyman. I know where we are, Sully says. It's a one-of-a-kind factory geared for fear. MI completed it right before the energy storage. But they put it in mothballs once the crisis began, couldn't afford the expense of getting a new factory online.
But then Sully turns around and says,
"Oh, it's not possible. I can't believe he actually got it to work. What is it?" Mike asks. Waternoose called it the master door he used to go on and on about it. You can go through it and come out in any closet anywhere. As long as Waternoose has this, no kid is safe.
So to speed things up just a little bit, Mike, breaks out this axe, I guess, to put it this, wielding out this axe, I guess planning to destroy the door or something, but Sully refuses and even Waternoose comes in, and yeah, I guess Mike trying to, axe the door or whatever.
And a bit of dialogue, a conversation between Sully, Mike, and Waternoose, a fight between Waternoose and Sully over an axe, and Sully axes the door, in which, because a very twisted and bizarre door, and as we read and Sully described.
And basically, Waternoose goes into the door, and, with Sully, he axes the door, and that could probably, and they think, could take care of Waternoose, etc.
Yeah, about that. I think not. And finally, the last page of issue 2, where we cut to Mike performing a comedic act for this kid and trying to tell a joke to the kid. Oh, and by the way, he has a Ratatouille poster hanging on his wall. Pixar and Disney stuff and the Monsters, Inc. comics, as we said earlier. Anyways, Mike proceeds on saying, "And then Miley said, 'Cloak of invisibility, my foot. Where'd all the squirrels come from?' Hold that thought, kid. I'll be right back." And then he says to Sully, "I'm telling you, Sully, my best material can't crack this one. Are you sure Waternoose isn't still scaring these kids?" "Positive, Mikey," Sully says. Our computer security's been tripled, and the CDA followed our anonymous tip straight to the scare factory.
We then see Mike grabbing a pair of dentures, and what the heck is that? Looks like a balloon or something. Well, I guess we'll find out later.
And then Mike says, "That's what I was afraid of. Looks like I'm gonna need to break out the big guns." And then we start hearing through the door, "Ah! Ooh! Ah! Ah! Chomp! Wow! Ha 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 ha!" as the kid is laughing. And then, of course, the yellow container that contains the kid's laughter raises up, ding, 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 as it goes. Mike comes out with the dentures chomping on his butt, I guess. Does Mike even have a butt? And that's the end of issue number 2 of Monsters, Inc. Laugh Factory. So we now come to issue number 3, and which is titled Toy Worry.
We see Boo in her room, in which she is greeted by this kid, this boy, who is running away from monsters, according to him.
And then we cut to Mike and Sully coming in to make sure if Boo is okay because of the boy they were trying to find.
And thus, this is where we have our title of the comic, Toy Worry, with Boo's Jessie doll.
Okay, time out. I gotta mention this about, Toy Story and Monsters, Inc., as well as Finding Nemo and A Bug's Life. You see, in my opinion, and do you remember seeing some of those videos on YouTube, like Pixar Theory and so on? Well, I'm pretty sure there's a theory that, this could just be me, or if anybody else thinks the same way as I do, that I feel as though that Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Monsters, Inc., and Finding Nemo are in the same world/universe. Think about it. You look at Toy Story and Monsters, Inc., A Bug's Life, Finding Nemo, they all have the Pizza Planet truck. Not to mention, in A Bug's Life, you see the trailer park home with the Pizza Planet truck. That, too, is in Monsters, Inc., when Randall gets thrown into the monster world. And Finding Nemo, well, for one thing, Buzz Lightyear makes a cameo in the dentist's office. You see a quick glimpse of the Pizza Planet truck, and during the end credits of Finding Nemo, Mike Wazowski floats by swimming. You see what I'm talking about? I had always considered that the possibility of what if, all 4 Pixar films are in the same world. Just think of it.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory, Jack, but who knows? Pixar would never say something like this, and, it's like all of their films, they're in their own universe, that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm just saying, because, that's my own theory, and if anybody else has that same theory too, and you get the idea. But anyways, time in, back to the comic.
After saying goodbye to Boo, Mike and Sully leave, and the boy who was hiding from the monsters thanks Boo and escapes.
And when Boo wakes up, she realizes that her Jessie doll is missing.
So Boo grabs her monster disguise and heads out to Monsters Incorporated to find the boy who took her Jessie doll.
And then she comes across these monsters. I, as of now, forgot what they're supposed to be.
And one of them says, "We've got a human kid loose in the building. You seen it?"
Boo replies, "Nuh-uh."
And then he says, "You heard the kid. Keep moving."
So Boo proceeds, and Celia actually sees Boo walking past her. "Boo? Boo? Stop right there, young lady."
She thinks that she has Boo by grabbing her arm, I assume. But no, she grabs the tail of Mrs. Nesbit.
I will admit that's pretty funny.
And I'm a bit surprised that Mrs. Nesbit hasn't appeared in Monsters at Work yet.
Yeah, and you know who else we're missing? Where's, say, Jerry and Joe Ramped? Where are those monsters? We then cut back to the boy, him still running around and hiding inside Monsters, Inc.
Then we see George Sanderson
and Boo, who's really angry at the boy, and which she is hiding behind George's back, tackles the boy.
Mike and Sully step in and tell Boo that she's been very bad and leaving her door, etc.
And then they see Boo, getting out of her suit and running straight towards the boy with her Jessie doll. Hey, that's him, Sully says.
And he's got Bull's doll, Mike says. And to speed things up a little bit, Mike, goes into one of the air vents, and Sully, he uses Boo's costume and throws it at the boy, and with Mrs. Nesbit thinking that Sully actually threw a real monster, even though it was a costume.
And there's some pretty funny dialogue here of what the boy first starts off saying.
Are you going to eat me?
What? Of course not. We're not going to eat you. We're not that kind of a monster.
And these two other monsters who hear this, they say, "Ooh, eat a human? Ooh."
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I can't deny it. That's pretty good there.
Oh, yeah, that's really good right there, because, just hilarious. I mean, look at that. That's really good right there. It's hilarious. All right, let's get back to the comic.
And to speed things up, the boy gets thrown back into where he belongs, in his room. The door gets shredded, and Mike and Sully return Boo back to their home, and with one last shot of the Jessie doll giving a wink. Probably giving a wink at us, the audience, or just something, I don't know. But I guess it's obvious, the Toy Story world is in the same world with the Monsters, Inc. world, etc. And now we come to the fourth and final issue of the Monsters, Inc. comics, and this is where things get really good. We open with the CDA headquarters, and with the CDA mission briefing room, with some dialogue from Roz. Listen lip, people. We've got a Class M situation. Henry Waternoose has escaped from the Maw. So much for Monstropolis' maximum security prison being inescapable. Yeah, that's what it's saying. And he's not alone. Randall Boggs has joined him on his little field trip. We believe that this human boy used priority closet technology to free them, and I have a pretty good idea of what they're going to do now that they're free. James P. Sullivan and Michael Wazowski, the monsters, have run a roll of all three of our felons. They put Waternoose and Boggs in prison in the first place. It's likely that the escapists' first move will be to go after Sullivan and Wazowski, looking for payback. I want Sullivan and Wazowski in protective custody ASAP. We'll use them to draw the bad guys out of hiding.
I gotta admit, Jack, that was a slightly decent Roz impression.
Hey, I tried my best, okay? Let's get back to reading the comic. So we cut to Sully, where in Boo's room he's reading her a story, putting her to bed. When he walks out, we see Mike warning him not to go, out or to close the door. And along with Mike, we have Celia, of course.
But if you noticed, Boo snuck out of her room and followed Sully, and now Boo is with all three of the monsters.
And we also cut to the three bad guys, of course, Waternoose, Randall, and the human kid.
Steal every last energy canister at Monsters, Inc. and frame Sullivan and Wazowski for the crime, says Waternoose. They'll be criminals and outcasts, just like they made us.
Trust me, there's no future in frame jobs, says Randall. I say we try something a little more permanent.
And then we cut to the human kid saying to them,
Look, I didn't bring spring, you creeps, to watch you get your jollies going after the guys who locked you up. You promised to get me the plans for that closet door technology. I'll be a gazillionaire in the human world. And we hear some knocking going on, some banging. On the other side, it's Sully banging the door.
By the way, look at that face that Sully makes.
Yeah, what's up with that?
And then we see Waternoose and the human kid. Waternoose says, Well, look who's in prison now.
Celia says, Waternoose.
And then Sully says, Waternoose.
And then Mike says, Human kid who steals toys and escapes through closets.
Get him, Mikey, says Sully, and they go after them.
And then Randall does something like, well, actually, no, because the human kid and Waternoose, they grab them by the legs, and Randall comes in too. And then some really cool stuff going on here because it all centers around Celia and Boo. They go into the human world running and escaping from Waternoose, Randall, and the human kid. It's some really cool stuff, and especially what Randall says right here to Celia. Going somewhere, Celia.
And also, they make their way up to this boy's bedroom. Like, they jump on a trampoline and they enter his room. And the human kid tackles Celia. Her hair bites his nose. And even Boo, like, bit the human kid on his arm. They make their way back into the monster world, and they accidentally hit Bile as he was about to make the kid laugh. But now that kid's traumatized.
Going somewhere, gentlemen, Roz says. And then Celia says, listen up, boss. You're going to tell us right now where Michael and Sully are, or else. And then her hair, which being snake hair, hisses at Waternoose. So Mike and Celia are reunited, and Sully and Boo are reunited too. We girls can take care of ourselves, Celia says. I knew we could count on you, Schmoopsy Poo, says Mike.
So, what's going to happen to Mr. Waternoose, Randall, and the human boy? Asks Sully.
The kid is outside of Monstropolis jurisdiction. All we can do is send him back home and hope he's had his fill of monsters. Boggs and Waternoose will have a lot of time added to their sentences. They should have just taken their lumps and done their time. It'll be a lot worse for them now. And then Mike says, man, that kid must have freaked out. What with all those monsters bursting into his bedroom?
Well, 'cause wait and see what happens with Mike when he tries to make the kid laugh.
Yep, because the last page on our issue is when Mike is about to make the kid laugh, who was totally scared, just geez, and, with all those monsters coming into his bedroom, yeah. Fire that door up, Fungus. I'm ready to get back in the saddle. And as you can see, the boy has, hammered his window shut and has a baseball bat with him. Yep, he was totally scared beyond belief. Mike comes in and says, hello, bedroom. I just flew in from Monstropolis, and boy, are my arms tired. And then we cut back and we see Fungus and outside of, the entrance to the door. Ow! Put that bat away, kid! I knew I should have opened with the monster's stink gag.
And that was issue number 4. And with all that being said, on all 4 comics and with, the comics of Monsters, Inc., they're awesome!
And they're also incredible.
I gotta say, Boom Kids doesn't disappoint. They've done a really good job with the Monsters, Inc. comics. Monsters, Inc. Laugh Factory, as it's called.
Indeed, Jack, because, they have some good stories and, because all 3 issues, have their main antagonists, and all leading up to the 4th and final issue where all 3 villains, they come together in a big showdown. And you know what? It's actually mostly just Celia and Boo. And it's nice that Celia got to have some action and such, Just like, say, how Mike and Sully, they got the action and adventure in Monsters, Inc. Yeah, because, from the doors and, you get the idea. Yes, exactly.
I'm telling you, these Monsters, Inc. comic books are really, really, really good. It would have been awesome if, this was turned into animation, if this could have been a movie, or maybe, say, part of Monsters at Work, or just something. It would have been really awesome, but, for them being comics, it's okay. They're still good, and Disney does a really good job with their comics, or should I say, Boom Kids. Yeah, Boom Kids does a really good job with doing Disney comics, from Monsters, Inc., The Muppets, Finding Nemo, you name it. And here's another thing. Don't you worry. You're going to be seeing more videos of me and the butler looking at some more comic books. And it doesn't matter what they're going to be. They're gonna, because you'll know once you see them and when they come out.
Yep, that's right, and we think you're gonna enjoy them. So stay tuned for more, viewers.
Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, see ya.
Yep, thank you very much for watching, viewers. Well, bye-bye.